another last straw moment is when my 3-year-old died almost 2 years ago in August. And so that was kind of a last straw moment for me, in how I experienced my marriage up until that point. So for me, the last straw moment was your distraction, your lack of account. This dynamic has to change, period.
Yeah.
So those were kind of my last straw moments. And I guess they were kind of emotional and mental. I don't think I had a last straw moment with the Lord, though. I don't think I ever felt like, Lord, you left me. That thing never happened, to me during any of those times. Even though I had the visions and I knew my son would pass, and I knew because he kept showing me. I didn't say he left me, but I was just like, why would you show me if I can't do anything about it? Welcome to Female Voices, Life and Loss, a podcast dedicated to women from all walks of life. Whether you're navigating through loss, seeking growth, or simply looking for a place to feel understood, you've come to the right space. Each week, we provide compassionate guidance, share diverse stories, and offer practical advice to help you heal, grow, and thrive. No matter where you are on your journey, we're here to walk with you. Let's grow together. Welcome back, friends, to Female Voices, Life and Loss. I am LaWayna Berry.
And I am Teresa Reiniger.
So today we are going to talk about the Tyler Perry's movie Straw. And I saw this movie on Netflix and I was just like, yep, can't go there at first. I saw the trailer and I was like, yeah, I need a little more time with that. And so I actually hadn't even planned to watch it no time soon. I'm going to say that up front. But Brittany from Rich Mama's group, that a networking group that me and Teresa are in, she was like, Wayna, you need to respond to this. And I was like, dang it, now I got to watch it.
And you said, Teresa, you need to watch it. Was that after you watched it or before you watched it?
It was after.
Okay.
I was like, you got to watch it so we can talk about it.
Yeah. I'm glad I did. I'm glad that you watched it and then you shared that with me, because it was a real eye opener for me, for sure.
I didn't know if you would want to watch something like that though, because it's a little gutter. It's hard. It's right there at your heart as soon as you read it. I mean, listen to it, you're like, oh my God. Okay, so
I felt like I didn't have a choice because you said we're going to do an episode on this, so I didn't feel like I had a choice if I could or I couldn't watch it. I felt like, okay, we're going to talk about this. I got to watch this. In fact, to be quite honest with you, my husband is in charge of the TV in the living room, and he watches TV. I don't watch a whole lot of TV. And so one day last week I said, hey, I need to watch this movie, and it's on Netflix. And the only place we get Netflix is in the living room. So I need to watch it tonight or tomorrow night. And so he was watching something. I said, are you interested in this, what you're watching? So he ended up watching it with me. So I was surprised that I thought he moved to the bedroom to watch his own TV, but he didn't. He watched it with me. So
you're like the second couple. One of my clients, they watched it together too. That was their like date night kind of thing to do together. And I had to give the husband kudos because I was like, you sat through that whole thing. That's rough. Yeah, bless your husband. My husband would have not. Like halfway in, he would have been like, I cannot. Like this is
no. He did, and of course there was a lot of emotion stirred up, and we've shared this before that he is a very sensitive guy. So like, grab the tissues, both of us. I mean,
I was taking notes, so I didn't cry because I was trying to take notes and trying to be intentional about how I wanted to discuss it.
Good. I didn't take notes, so I'm gonna have to go by memory. I'm like, oh no, I should have taken notes.
No, I was just because I went in with the thought of, I want us to talk about it and present it to other women. So where should we start? Should we start about the breaking point? Should we talk about her grief? Do we start with motherhood or this kind of emotional isolation? Like, where? There's just so many ways to go.
There was so much
Mm-hmm.
in that movie, and I don't know, wherever you want to go, wherever you want to start. Tell me what you thought. We've already talked about the emotional part. We can talk about that.
Yeah, well, maybe we can just talk about motherhood and how mothers have to be kind of everything for everyone, and how women sacrifice themselves a lot of times.
Yeah.
So in the movie, just how it started with just it's loud, it's hot. She doesn't have enough of anything, enough time, enough resources, enough food. And so I just remember myself, I went through a season. It was brief, thank the Lord. It didn't last any longer than that. But where I just didn't have enough. Like, so when she went to the hospital because her baby had all these medical issues, I remember when I took Gabe to the I didn't have enough money to get his prescription for his asthma. He had asthma really, really bad. And I was like, I thought I could just like override my account and it wouldn't do it. And the pharmacist like, you got to pay out of pocket. And I was like, I don't have that. And then, but he was having an asthma attack. So she was like, we're going to have to call the ambulance if you can't pay for the medication. And then we know how expensive the ambulance ride is, and then the medical. And then he's traumatized because he's never been in an ambulance. I couldn't ride with him because I couldn't leave my car, and how I was going to get back to my car is a whole thing.
Yeah.
So I just felt her in that moment. How did that, just that opening scene, for you?
That was a lot. I mean, I have never really experienced that. I can say that there was definitely a time in, I think when growing up, I've talked about this many, many times with so many siblings, that I felt like we didn't have enough. But many times we didn't know we didn't have enough. And I can remember there was a time when my husband and I were married, and I can't remember what year it was. He would be able to rattle it off, but it was very early in our marriage that he was really on unemployment for 26 weeks out of that year. And so it was tight. And I just remember we cut back. I mean, it was tight. We always figured it out. But there was definitely a lot of things that we went without during that time. That memory came kind of back to me. And really, my heart went out to her. Because I know, living here in the St. Louis area, I mean, we have probably, I don't know, hundreds, if not thousands of people that are in that same position, I think.
Yeah, and just thinking about you and your husband, at least you two had each other. What I've learned from you is that you both had strong parents too, that were encouraging and wanting to see you win. So those kind of aspects were missing, of course, from her story in the movie, and a lot of times from my own story. But it's just you just kind of resonate because I worked as a school counselor, and there were many of those kids that came to school and didn't have enough food, and parents just did not have enough resources. They're working at fast food jobs, and that's the only job, in the home. So it's definitely prevalent. I feel like a lot of people want to stick their head in the sand. You're like, no, really, this is our next generation coming up that's going to take care of us. We need to pour into them.
And I know I have helped with, like, we have here in our community in Collinsville, we have, I think it's called Tote Them Home. I think it's what it's called. And you're filling bags with food to go home on Friday so that the kids have food throughout the weekend, because many times they will not have food. So we do have a program like that. And then in the summertime, there's a whole program at one of the churches where the kids can come every day to at least get lunch. And so I know it's very much in our communities where in the movies she talked about, I need to get $40 to the school to pay for her lunch. And, it was over and over. She talked about getting that money to her daughter for lunch. And I was thinking about that.
That was so she could eat the lunch that everybody else got.
Right.
But
right.
Yeah, that happens though, because you do get shamed at school. Oh, you're the free kid lunch and that kind of stuff. But I remember I experienced that going to school, but it wasn't as bad. And it's probably because we all were kind of in the same boat. There wasn't that many of us that lived higher than the other one. We all kind of got free lunch, so it was maybe normalized, if for lack of a better word. But I worked at community centers. I know here in St. Louis, all the libraries have lunch every day. They have after school lunch for kids. I worked at Catholic Charities, and so we had, like you said, that lunch program all summer. We were always partnering with different people to drop off groceries and supplies. So it's there, but the need is high. It's still high. Even working at a university, the kids still, but young adults still experience food insecurity. So it's still very, very high. And for a lot of people, especially with, inflation and things like that,
Yeah.
So, we didn't talk a little bit about how women sacrifice, though.
Oh, yeah. And it was definitely, she did, for sure. She sacrificed everything for her child. And I don't know, it was just heart-wrenching to me, paycheck to paycheck, telling everyone she's going to pay them when she gets paid, and promising payment after payment after payment.
And following, deaf ears.
And falling short. Yeah.
So this mom in the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, the mom you see her sacrifice at every single turn.
Everything.
She's sacrificing her physical health because she's working 2 jobs. She's sacrificing her sleep because she needs to hear in case her baby girl is in distress with physical health. She's sacrificing emotional health because she's getting dumped on by everybody, sadly. Her landlord is dumping on her boss is dumping on her daughter wakes up dumping on her. They dump on her at the hospital when she get there, and and at school because she doesn't have the $40 and she's always running late. So it's just there were so many losses, like you almost couldn't keep track of all the sacrifices that were being made. And I just think to myself, like, how does a person in that situation keep fighting, keep hope?
Yeah. Hard. And when you were saying that, even with her daughter with the medical issues that she has, I remember her saying that her labor started early, and it was what I took from that is they didn't do anything to stop her labor. They almost forced her to deliver early, and then her child had medical complications. And I know just from doing what I've done for 5 years and working with and educating myself on the higher percentage of Black women. She's a Black woman in the movie, and that they don't get the care. They don't get the medical care when they're in the hospital. They're not listened to when they're saying that there's a problem with a pregnancy. And I just that hit me because I don't remember now, but it's like 2 or 3 times higher than what it is for white women. And I think it's good for the audience to know that it is real.
So I'm glad that you said it and I didn't say it, because I was going to say it.
Yeah, it's
But
terrible.
I even experienced in my own medical care, just like you said, falling on deaf ears. So there's two strikes against her. She's Black and she is a woman. So a lot of times women don't get listened to at all. And I remember, like, I had found this nurse practitioner who was the first person to, like, listen to me, and it was like, let's find out what's going on with your body. Something's going on. Only the nurse practitioner went those 3 steps further to investigate. Let's do a stool sample. Let's do this. Let's do some blood work. Let's see what's happening inside. And I posted that online, and I was so relieved because I had finally was able to get into to see a neurologist for my migraines that I've been having for 20 years that nobody said anything about. I was able to get into somebody with gut pain about my stomach and just all these kind of things. And my church member, at that time, I was going to a church in Alton, and Caucasian lady, and she basically was like, that happens to women all the time. And I say, I understand that, but I have an extra layer. Being a person of color. And I'm like, maybe you don't know the history, even if we just go with the history of Tuskegee experiments and all these kind of things around people of color. Like, we have a nervousness walking into there because we don't know if we're going to make it out a lot of times, So it's just an added layer, and I really appreciate you saying that, that you understand that part, because it's a big part for us,
And I guess I feel very fortunate how I was raised, where I was raised. I mean, you may not know this, but when I went to school, our school, my whole grade school and high school were in East St. Louis. So I very much were around people of color and Hispanics and all of that. It was a blend of people, and so I'm very aware of it. I don't see people differently because of their skin, because that's how I was raised and how I grew up. Going to school in East St. Louis, they were my friends. I have so many friends, that are people of color, and so I very much have made sure that I was broadening my knowledge all the time. Now, can I feel like a woman of color feels? I can't. And I never will. But I do want to be sympathetic and understanding of it, and be knowledgeable of what they go through. And I really work towards doing that, and hope to continue to work towards that.
That's a big, that's huge. And I think, for minorities, all minorities, I think that's all that's kind of like all we ask. You know what I'm saying? Like, you see where I'm at, understand where I'm at, understand it's not the same, and just bring some attention to it, bring some awareness, because when you're aware, then you make more changes. And it's uniquely where I am, because, my bonus kids are blonde hair and blue eyes. So they appear Caucasian, even though they're mixed. So they are going to be in rooms that I won't ever be in, and hear things that I won't ever hear. And hopefully they're aware enough, to kind of do the right thing, for lack of a better word, just, take it in, take some of that stuff with a grain of salt, and kind of do what's right, though, because we're humans first. We all bleed red, So let's look at a little bit of the have you ever had a last straw moment, whether it was emotionally, mentally, or spiritually? Did you ever have kind of that last straw moment?
I think everyone does. And for me, my last straw was not anything like her last straw. That true breaking point. My last straws are just they're emotional, probably more so than not. They're situations with my children, possibly, and just throwing my arms up, crying. I really just don't know what to do.
Oh,
That is kind of more of my breaking point.
okay.
Not anywhere near the breaking point that she endured, the last straw that she endured. So I can't really relate to that. She had a lot.
It was like a tornado
oh my
of
gosh,
things that was just kind of taking off, and
Ooh,
something else every hour. Something else picked up in that
yeah,
world that was her life.
yeah.
I guess I probably have had a couple of last straw moments, but of course not to the extent to where she was, but kind of a little bit, meaning like my decision to divorce my first husband was, you know, kind of a last straw moment. I had no clue what life looked like, you know, on the other side of that. I just had hope it would be better and I would feel and experience life differently than I had up until that point. That was a very, very challenging time. And I can tell you, I probably felt the intensity that she feels. Some of those moments throughout that movie. Just because, you know, you're working so hard. You know, I worked full time and I went to grad school full time, and I had a 5-year-old, you know, and so nobody showed up, you know, so you're burning the candle at both ends. And definitely that experience with my son that was during that time too. Lord, it is going to have to be me. I think where I made different choices, meaning I took out student loans just so I didn't have to work 2 jobs, and I was at home with my son. So those are other ways that I have been impacted by it, maybe not emotionally but financially, you know, because it was very important for me to be at home. I was very much like, I need to keep my son safe, and that was my number one. And so kind of another last straw moment is when my 3-year-old died almost 2 years ago in August. And so that was kind of a last straw moment for me, in how I experienced my marriage up until that point. So for me, the last straw moment was your distraction, your lack of account. This dynamic has to change, period. So those were kind of my last straw moments. And I guess they were kind of emotional and mental. I don't think I had a last straw moment with the Lord, though. I don't think I ever felt like, Lord, you left me. Kind of that thing never happened, to me during any of those times. Even though I had the visions and I knew my son would pass, and I knew because he kept showing me. I didn't say he left me, but I was just like, why would you show me if I can't do anything about it? So that was my fussing at the Lord. How dare you? You know? And then I come back to reality that you don't control anything. So
yeah. I don't remember her, it being a necessarily a faith-based movie. That was not, I don't remember anywhere in there where that God or prayer or anything that came up in the movie.
Yeah, which is a little different.
Didn't,
because he used
they did not.
Yeah,
they did not put
and
that in there.
would have been reassuring when. Let's throw some more hope in there. But I do love how the relationship with her and the bank teller unfolded.
Oh my gosh. Okay, but before we talk about that,
okay.
I felt a lot of emotion when the police officer, and I'll just say what I said because I don't cuss, but I said to my husband, I said, what wrong with him? What an ass is what I said. I'm like, what a jerk.
Just I'm like somebody while they're already down. I just did not.
I'm like, what in the heck? I was furious at him for sure. And then the other white guy, the FBI guy, I'm like,
all the white guys. And
I
so,
was like, oh
yeah,
my
such
God.
moment. Unfortunately, as a person of color, I experience those moments myself on a regular basis, like other people of color. And they come in hot. I mean, just around the corner from my house, this guy pulled me over. I mean, he had like 8 lights going. And I was like, why do they need so many lights? You know? Like, because it was like the lights on the top, the lights on the front, and he had lights on each side of the doors.
Yeah,
So
of course.
it's blinding you when they pull you over. You don't know who's walking up to the car. And he comes in and he just comes in, hi, what are you doing? Where are you going? Is this your car? I have a truck. I have a big truck that Teresa says, why do you drive a truck? And I'm like, a weird question, but I like to sit up high and see the road. That's why I drive.
Yeah.
But he basically grilled me.
You don't look like a truck driver.
No. I'll have my whole
get him questioning that. That does not fit.
No, this is the question that he said though, Teresa. He says, is this your truck? And I said, yes, because I have the vanity plates. So I'm like, yes. He said, so do you have insurance on this truck? And I'm like, it costs $90,000. Why would I not have insurance? I'm like, yes. He said, so when I run your plates, it's going to match your driver's license.
Yes, sir.
I said, it's going to match the driver's license and it's going to match the plates on the car with the same name. And I live around the corner. So I know you've seen me. I live around the corner. You know that address.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they know their neighborhood and it's a little bit better neighborhood, so they'll let it go.
Yeah.
But he was grilling me. He was grilling me. I was like, what is this energy?
Yeah.
Then he came back and he was just like, okay, have a nice day. Okay. So unfortunately, that was not a dramatization, is all I'm trying to say. And I have worked for the police department as well. And they come in just like that. So
yeah. I was just saying bad words to him. Both of them. And he was like, what the heck?
What I do love, though, is for the Caucasians who stand in front of the Black person and like, no, you're not going to do this today. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not okay to treat another human being like this.
Yeah.
So Lord bless those people.
Yeah. The female police officer, I think
she tried, but she was also trying to do her actual job too. So it's like,
she was kind of caught there.
Yeah, so it's kind of I'm trying, but you were also out of compliant. Like I got to do my job.
Yeah.
So I get it, but it's just sadly I can name probably 5 people who have had days like that. Including kind of what my mom shared at the bereavement event and her medical experience.
Yeah,
it's just like that's a regular Tuesday for us.
Yeah.
But it was very, very upsetting.
Yeah.
That it seems to be the humanity was lost.
Yeah. But it was good, like you started to say with the women at the bank, just all of them.
But that transition, you know what I'm saying? They weren't originally rooting for her.
Yeah. But even the older lady that was the diabetic, that you could tell she was so open and it was really talking and trying to help the woman for sure, until she needed to get help for her diabetes. So that was very touching. And then the manager, oh my gosh! But the other two, the one I was like, what is with you?
Right, why her?
We're inconveniencing.
Right, quit. You're doing too much, girl. I love that they were trying to understand, though. But I'm saying, like, okay, I'm in this scary situation, but she's like, I'm not doing any of this. I just want you to cash my check so I can leave.
Yeah,
it was crazy. But okay, so we're gonna end with the office, the bank manager.
She was amazing.
But let's talk a little bit about what grief was suppressed and unprocessed. So speak to that, Teresa, our grief coach. On how unprocessed grief manifests itself in these
Well,
characters.
in that movie, it was very obvious that she had a lot of that she continued to suppress and try to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
But it was building. I don't want to, nobody's listened or watched the movie, I mean. It was a last straw. And I think a lot of that was all that emotion and all of that loss suppressed. And then there was just a total explosion in her.
He did the trigger word, so he mentioned her daughter, and that a light click, boom, she lost it.
Yeah, and that happens all the time with people. And I think society also does not support that at all. They almost force us to suppress a lot of our losses. And so in the movie, you can definitely see that explosion from it. And I just want to say to the audience, maybe your explosion will not be as big as hers, her last straw, but it's still affecting you physically, mentally, and spiritually. You will have somewhat of a last straw, an explosion, if you keep suppressing those emotions, is what I would say.
So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that, though, because if you've seen the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, see the movie. I mean, I'm going to talk about it. But there was a layer after layer after layer. You know what I'm saying? So her mom did not have a good relationship. Her and her sister did not have a good relationship. Her and her child's father, he MIA. Where is he? We don't know.
We don't know. Didn't talk about him at all.
Right. That doesn't even come up. No, she brought it up for a half a second, and she said to the bank teller, "I bet your husband's a good guy."
Oh, yeah.
She's like, "Because I didn't meet a good guy, and you really got to watch who you know." So she did hint to a little bit that he wasn't a good guy. So we got that loss, and then we have a pregnancy where we're doing it by ourselves, and then we have that loss, and then our baby comes with special needs. Now it's a whole nother game now.
Yeah.
So now I'm in fight or flight every day because I don't know if my baby's going to make it from one day to the next.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just, and then we didn't get to her own goals, her own dreams, her own aspirations. We didn't even learn anything about who she was before life happened to her. So that's a whole loss of identity altogether. And I know a lot of women like this. I coach, I counsel women that have had life just kind of just smack them around the whole time, and they have to learn a new way of being.
Yeah.
What does my life look like when I'm not in fight or flight mode anymore? Where I'm not fighting for food or fighting for a job or fighting for this money or that or time or
And I think I do that a lot of times with people is that I call that kind of visioning, that they walking through with people to can you see that? Because if we can't see it, we will never obtain it. If we can't even imagine not being in fight or flight. And a lot of that comes too, where you've been to several of my events, it's the breath work, it's the journaling, it's the doing all of that to really see and being able to control some of that, what's going on, that fight or flight. And I think people a lot of times don't know how to do that. They don't know how to do that.
Yeah, the new phrase around all of that kind of work is to slow down.
Yeah.
That is it. Nothing is going to happen while you're rushing. You have to slow down and be intentional, like you're saying. Think about what would something different look like you said, journal. What hey ladies, if you can't figure out what to journal, just search journal prompts for for motivation or for a positive attitude or
Yeah.
for whatever experience that you need to work on. There are 18,000 journal prompts that can help get you targeted. Like, and that's what you're saying. We got to start getting targeted. What is the goal? Yes, you've been through a lot. Yes, you're traumatized. Now, what do we do with that? Where are we moving next? What's the rest of the story? Because it's not, you're still alive, so it hasn't ended.
No. Yeah, I'm just a firm believer in doing all of that. And I always reference when I talk to people, like, we all have seen professional athletes and other people that visually see winning that medal.
Manifesting.
Manifesting. That they, if you ask them, how do you feel right now about it? They're excited, of course, but they have felt that feeling before multiple times because they have won that medal. They have ran that race. And so when it happens, it's just a routine for them. And so I think it's real important for people to know you can, people probably think it's crazy, like, you can dream about it, you can plan for it, and the only way you're going to obtain it is really many, many times is to know that you can, and you do that with visualization.
Visualization and actual action items.
Actions for sure.
You know, they say
to come from that.
If you didn't plan.
But I do believe when you do visualization, most people, your mind is going to give you what you're able to obtain for the most part. And many times I believe God is putting some of those visions in your head to help you through that process. But it's like you said before, you got to slow down. You have to be intentional or it won't happen.
And sometimes those things are hard for people to picture.
Absolutely.
With the trauma experience, with most 90% of their interactions have been negative. So sometimes you got to help them paint it. I help them get to that other side, of course.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about, did we discuss how trauma lives in the body, and household, and, what a healing may be required from trauma? I know myself, I have my own complicated upbringing. Is not as complicated as a lot of my cousins, though. Some of us got it a little worse, and some of us didn't. But trauma is still trauma. So I still score very high on the ACEs test. And ACEs is about all your childhood experience. So it would ask you things like, was there violence inside your household or outside your household? Did they yell and scream inside and outside? Did people abuse substances and alcohol? And was that going on? Was there fresh produce by your neighborhood? Just all these kind of things that impact who you are. And I'm definitely, like a lot of people with a trauma past, is definitely impacted by certain things. So if there people start arguing around you, you're like, whoa, I need to, are they gonna fight? What's going on? Anybody got weapons? So it's hard to realize that. It's hard to turn that off when you're safe. So like you're saying, we got to slow down and retrain our brain to know we're safe now. We don't have to be such hyper vigilant. But yes.
Yeah. And it's really visualizing, and maybe it's only been one time that you have felt really, really safe. But revisiting that, what that looked like, what that felt like, so that you can experience that again. Especially when you're in that heightened emotions and that trauma, that fight or flight, to really go back to that time when you did feel safe. And what does that look like? What did that feel like? And really diving into the senses so that you can re-enter that space again. It's so important. And I don't think we don't teach it. They don't teach it.
That's true.
For sure.
It's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time.
It's intentional. It's got to be intentional, like you said
Yeah,
before.
you gotta want it. So I know
Yeah.
you talked a little bit about the emotions that came up. How do you feel about the portrayal though of this Black woman struggling, her redemption? Like how did that land on you? I'm just curious.
It landed on me as like yes, I know this happens.
Mm-hmm.
I know this happens a lot. And it just gave me a little more of a drive, I guess, to really continue to do the work that I'm doing to support people that are experiencing all of these losses.
Mm-hmm.
And many times there's a lot of loss in there. It's connected to a lot of loss, like you were saying, a lot of loss in their past. And many times we as a society, we want to work on just the most current. And that's what I do as a grief coach is, no, we're not going to just work on this one thing here. We're going to work on all of these together, and really work to resolve and work through all of this instead of just the one. And I think a lot of people, they don't, I shouldn't say that, I'm categorizing everyone. I think there are probably many that do not really work with the whole person.
Yeah, I'm pretty much a whole holistic approach is always for me too. Just that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If food, sex, shelter is not being taken care of, then you're not going to be able to get to working on our mental health and communication. No, we got to take care of the first needs first. Which is a little complicated sometimes in therapy because people come in therapy for one thing. I want a better communication, better coping skills, but I don't have a job. If you don't have a job, for one, I don't know how we're going to continue this therapy, but having a job is going to be sustainable for your family. So we can't get to the pretty parts. We got to do the job first. We got to figure that out. And once you get a job, then we can focus on the next, fire to put out. For lack of a better word.
And that's, I think we're very much the same in our approach for that. I do actually something called a grief impact wheel when I first start working with someone. And it's really like what do they call that, like a health life wheel, where it's all areas of their life, and I have them really work on that. So it's kind of a homework kind of thing, where and it's specific to their grief. Where has their grief positively or negatively affected their health, their career, their relationship, their whatever. So we know exactly where they're struggling, I'll say, for lack of a better word, the most, and then that's where we begin. But I agree with you. If there needs to be a job or that initial thing needs to happen, of course, that's where we go first.
I do like those kind of we did something a little different, but it was called an ungrateful and grateful list. This is what this death brought to me. So it's kind of the same thing, how is this landing on me, and really take some intentional time around it. And you never, and I'm gonna say that up front, that is not in Grief Share, that is not in any of the other books, like except from I'm not okay. It's the book. It's this grief book. It's okay that I'm not okay.
It's okay. It's right here.
Yeah, I'm like, read the title. I'm butchering it. It's okay that you're not okay. I believe that's the title.
I had it right here. Yep. It's okay that you're not okay.
Yeah, I finally got it the 5th time. No, but that book is the first book that kind of talks about the negative, ungrateful things that we experience from this loss. Because the loss is not, when you're going through something, somebody tells you to be grateful, you're like, what? Yeah. Like, I'm homeless and you're telling me to be grateful? Like, what?
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of how grief feels when you're in the thick of it. It feels like that. Like, I'm homeless and you're telling me to be happy. You're like, what? But so there's definitely a lot of that happening. And Has there been any part of this movie that reminding you of, and I know you talked about the challenges you and your husband faced when he was out of work for those 26 weeks. Did it come up for any silent battles that was happening internally for you? Did it remind you of any that you had faced in the past or anything like that?
Sure. I think that brought me back to childhood when your friends have all of these things. That's the only time you really feel like you don't, that you're poor or you don't have enough or whatever, is when you're around your friends at school.
Mm-hmm.
And there were plenty of times when it was like you're an outsider because you don't have all the things that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did feel that then. And it was because there were so many of us. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's probably when it was the most that you weren't included on things, for sure,
mm-hmm.
because you didn't have enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You didn't wear the right clothes.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have the name brand shoes or jeans or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I did experience that. So definitely, when we were going through those difficult times, I would think about more of my childhood.
Yeah.
Not having enough. But at that time, I know we at least had one daughter. We probably had two at that time. So it really, the thought didn't go so much for me. It was like taking care of making sure there was enough food for them and enough to do, for them. We didn't run the air conditioner. We wet it out in the summer because we didn't want the electric bill to be so high, so things like that. But they were fine. They were kids. They're,
Yeah.
a little cool out back, cool off.
Yeah. We kind of grew up like that a little bit when living with my grandma. It was a lot of us. It was 17 of us in one house. Yeah. So I don't know about silent battles because I'm pretty vocal. But it kind of took me back to when I was in 9th grade, and I didn't live with my mother. My mother lived somewhere else. She dropped us off, and I don't know what was happening with her that year. So that was kind of a big eye-opening time for me. Like, I needed to advocate for me and my sister. I had to protect my sister from other people, so she didn't get, abused and things like that. And so I really became a parent at 14, to my sister. And I say this a lot. I'm a child welfare person. Like, don't hurt kids. There's too many ways that you can stop procreation if you don't want to be bothered. There are a lot of avenues. So I get really upset when kids are mistreated in any capacity. That is my anchor. Man. So I feel really strongly about it. So that's kind of a moment where I could feel kind of that isolation, that loneliness. To my defense, I did at least have friends. I had male friends. I had friends with cars that I could say, hey, I need a break. Take my sister to my mother. And I'm 14, co-parenting with my mother. I'm like, Mom, you need to come get her. I've had her all week. You need to come get her. And my mom's like, I don't have a car, so I can't come get her. The bus rides over my house. So I made friends. And so all my friends knew on Friday, one of y'all is coming to take me to drop her off. So bless them, they would. I would call them and they'd be like, what day is it? It's Friday. Okay, we got to drop little Danielle off. And they would take me to the city to my mom, or they would take me to East St. Louis with my cousin, and I could leave her with my cousin. So I can get a break at 14. So some of those really, really, really resonated with me, and some of the challenges I've had in my life. But there is an upside. We talked about, let's dive into, as we end, about the positive aspects that we saw, and how it unfolded at the end. For me, just the main character, she's just such a sweet, sweet person.
Yes.
And she plays a lot of these roles in different movies. I don't know if you've seen her in other movies, where a lot of her roles are just they're very, very sweet. Just a sweet, meek, not trying to cause any trouble. I'm just trying to do what's right kind of role.
Yeah.
And it kind of made her an easy target too.
Yeah,
For
it did.
anybody's frustration.
Yeah, her and then the manager of the bank and the officer. Was she FBI? No,
I think she was a detective, and she just
detective. Yeah. Oh my goodness, the three of them, I would say, were the ones that just their hearts and all that they were trying to do. I can remember, I'm like, when she's trying to negotiate or whatever on the phone, I'm just like, just walk up there. I kept saying that. Just go up there. She's not gonna hurt anybody. Just go up there.
No, they were thinking that that was wrong, so they wouldn't.
I know. Stop listening to these other people. Just go up there. And then she eventually did. That I was like, I don't know how many times I said that. Just go up there.
I was so I felt so proud when the community came out.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I forgot about that.
So proud in that moment, and I was so proud at the dynamics of how the elder lady spoke to the younger women, just about supporting each other and just seeing her as human first.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a beautiful moment. Like, what's wrong with you? You don't see how do you hear? Like she said, how can you hear this? And it falls on deaf ears. Like, how do you not empathize? And then I just love how the bank manager, how she handled everything from start to finish. When she got new information, she adjusted her approach as she saw, okay, she's not hurting anybody. Then when they found out it wasn't a bomb, she was like, girl, all this was for nothing.
Yeah.
So, but it was very beautiful how she did it at the end, where she wanted to cover her, as they left the building,
that was beautiful.
It was. And just, I've had people in my life that covered me when I, had no clue to go right or left. And they just take my hand and kind of guide me through.
Yeah.
I feel those God winks on me. He winks at me when those things happen.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, if we didn't spoil the movie for you, or whether we did or we didn't, doesn't matter. It's a great movie. It's a movie that I think everyone should watch and see what you get out of it, because I think everyone will gain some great insight and great knowledge. Just be human and be nice to people. Just be nice to other human beings.
Yes, I'm with you. Please recognize we're human first, and a lot of our challenges are similar across races. I remember reading a book, Day in the Life of a Slave, and how the slave spoke about the master's wife. And she said, we have the same plight. I don't want to sleep with her man. She wants to sleep with her man. Like, we both are dealing with this man who has control over us. Very, very simplified right there with that sentence. So a lot of our pain and our struggles are similar. And so, like you said, we're human. I want to say, if you email us, that's how I'm going to put it out there. If you email us, then I will share a journal prompt for you to reflect on, after you watch this movie. So if you reach out to us, we'll get that to you. We want to hear your comments too. Please share with us how it landed on you. Please share with us your insights. Maybe you saw some things we didn't pick up. We would love to hear. We'd love to connect.
Yeah, it'll be a movie that I will probably watch again, just to grab some other stuff. There is a lot there. So I love that kind. When I feel like I want to watch a movie again, to grab everything that I missed the first time. that's a sign to me that it's a good movie. So I would say it's a
buddy.
very,
They got
very
you
good.
thinking now. They got us thinking,
Yeah, it's good.
Join us next week again as we talk about female voices, life, and loss with Wayna Berry
and Teresa Reiniger.
See you soon.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Female Voices, Life and Loss. We hope today's conversation brought you comfort, insight, and a sense of community. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you found this episode helpful, please share it with others who might need it. Stay connected, stay resilient, and until next time, keep growing and healing.